Why did the forest grow so quiet that morning? Why did the birds suddenly stop their songs, as if danger had spread across the trees? Deep inside the dense canopy, where sunlight barely touched the ground, a fragile cry echoed. It was the voice of a baby fossa, lost and separated from its mother. The little creature stumbled through the leaves, unaware of the shadow curling silently around a tree trunk, a massive python, patient still and waiting. The forest always had its rules, and silence was one of its warnings. Every step of the baby fossa left it closer to danger. The python's body moved like liquid muscle, blending with the roots and branches until only its flicking tongue revealed life. The baby paused, its ears twitching, but innocence blinded it to the threat. Not far away, a ranger patrolled the area. His boots pressed lightly into the wet soil as he scanned the ground for signs of poachers. He heard something unusual, the faint rustle of leaves that carried both urgency and fear. He whispered to himself, "That's not the wind. Something's out there." His heart beat faster, though he had seen countless rescues before. In this forest, every day brought a new battle between life and death. The baby's cry rose again, sharper, desperate. The ranger froze, listening carefully. The sound carried a plea, the kind that pulled at his instinct. "I have to move fast," he murmured, gripping the strap of his bag. Yet even as he hurried, the python coiled tighter, its eyes glowing coldly through the shadows. The mother fossa was not far either. She had been searching for her baby all morning, her nose to the ground, her movements restless. The forest gave her a strange signal, too much silence, too many birds circling above. Her instincts screamed and she let out a sharp call, hoping her baby would answer. The sound echoed, but no reply came. Back near the fallen log, the python shifted. Its body slithered closer, scales rubbing against dry bark with a sound too soft for prey to notice. The baby fossa tilted its head, sensing something but too young to understand the danger. One more step forward, and the snake's head lifted, its jaws parting in slow preparation. The ranger pushed through a thicket, thorns scraping his arms, but he didn't care. "Hold on, little one," he whispered under his breath, though the animal couldn't hear him. His eyes searched the ground, and then he saw it, the unmistakable trail of a python pressed deep into the soil. A fresh trail. He knelt, running his fingers over the impression. His pulse raced. "It's close, too close." Above him, the sun broke through the clouds for a brief moment, casting a shaft of light on the scene. The baby fossa froze under the beam, innocent, fragile, unaware of the predator inches away, and in that moment, the question hung heavy in the forest air. Would the ranger arrive in time, or would the python claim another life before help reached the spot? The python's body tensed, every muscle ready to strike. Its tongue flickered, tasting the air, measuring the tiny creature's heartbeat. The baby fossa twitched its ears and squeaked again, the sound sharp in the unnatural stillness of the forest. A squirrel darted across a branch above, then froze halfway, sensing the predator below. Even the wind seemed to hesitate, carrying only the faint hiss of scales sliding over bark. The ranger crouched low, pushing aside vines, every step calculated. He had tracked snakes before, but this one felt different. Something about the silence pressed against him, warning him that he was already too late. His breathing grew heavy as he whispered, "Stay alive, little one." Just a little longer. His eyes scanned left and right, looking for movement, for the unmistakable ripple of a massive body. The mother fossa, meanwhile, moved through the undergrowth with growing urgency. She let out another sharp call, her cry echoing off the trees, piercing the silence. The baby lifted its head, responding with a faint squeak. That sound carried far enough to reach the mother's ears, and she froze. Her eyes widened, her body stiffened. She had found her baby's direction, but danger lingered in that same place. The python lifted its head higher now, its cold gaze fixed on the baby. Its jaws opened wider, showing fangs that glistened in the filtered light. The baby blinked innocently, unaware that death hovered a breath away. It pawed at a leaf, tilting its head with childish curiosity. At that very second, the mother burst through a tangle of roots, her eyes blazing. She saw her baby, and she saw the predator towering above it. She let out a guttural snarl, a sound that vibrated with rage and fear. The python halted its strike, its head turning toward the mother. It didn't retreat. Instead, it shifted, calculating. A baby was one meal, but a mother would fight. The python had faced challenges before. It would wait. The baby squealed, rushing toward its mother, but the snake struck with shocking speed, its body whipping forward. The mother lunged, pushing her baby aside with a swift swipe of her paw. The python's head slammed into the ground inches away, snapping shut with a loud crack. Leaves and dust shot into the air. The baby rolled against a log, trembling, its tiny body quivering. The ranger heard the sound. His heart skipped. He sprinted forward, leaping over fallen branches. His boots pounded against the ground. He shouted, "Hold on! I'm coming!" The words echoed, though he knew the animals couldn't understand him. Still, his voice was a promise to himself. The python recoiled and coiled tighter, its massive body circling, preparing for another strike. The mother stood her ground, teeth bared, tail lashing. She snarled again, her body arched protectively over her baby. Her eyes locked on the snakes, and for a moment time froze. Two predators, two survivors, one fight. The ranger burst into the clearing just as the snake lunged again. Without thinking, he grabbed a branch from the ground and swung with all his strength. The wood cracked against the python's body, making it twist violently. Its tail whipped back, striking the ground hard enough to send dirt flying. The ranger staggered, but he did not back down. "Not today," he muttered, gripping the branch tighter. The mother Fossa snarled again, pushing her baby behind her. She glanced at the ranger, her instincts conflicted. Humans had always been dangerous. But in that moment, her enemy wasn't the man. It was the monster coiled before her. For a rare second, trust flickered between wild and human. The python hissed, its body stretching wider, towering over both. Its head swayed left and right, testing them, waiting for a weakness. The ranger's grip tightened, sweat dripping down his brow. His chest heaved. He whispered to himself, "This isn't enough. I need rope. I need help. But I can't leave them now." His eyes darted to the mother, who stood firm. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. A rumble echoed through the forest. Birds burst into the air. The ranger froze, looking around. The python paused too, its body rising slightly. And then the sound came, a second hiss, deeper, louder, another python. The ranger's blood ran cold. "No, not two," he breathed, backing a step. The mother Fossa's ears flattened, her eyes wide with alarm. She snarled louder, her voice desperate now. The baby whimpered, pressing against her. The second snake slithered into view, larger, darker, its scales scarred from old battles. It slid across the ground with terrifying grace, its tongue tasting the chaos in the air. The ranger felt his hands shake. Two massive predators against a mother, a baby, and one man with only a branch. His throat tightened. Think fast." The first python shifted, circling to the left, while the second approached from the right. They moved like shadows, cutting off escape. The mother hissed, her body tense, her baby pressed against her stomach. The ranger stepped forward, placing himself between the snakes and the animals. He raised the branch like a weapon, though his mind screamed that it wouldn't last long. The snakes lunged almost in unison. The ranger swung again, striking one across the head, but the other coiled suddenly around his legs, pulling him down. He hit the ground hard, gasping. The branch slipped from his hand. He kicked desperately, struggling against the tightening coil. His breath caught in his chest. "Not like this," he wheezed. The mother seized the moment. She leapt at the second python, sinking her teeth into its scales, clawing furiously. The snake thrashed, slamming her against the ground, but she didn't let go. She snarled, ripping, tearing, fueled by pure rage. The baby squealed, hiding beneath the log, trembling with every crash. The ranger clawed at his belt, pulling out a knife. His hands shook, but adrenaline surged. He slashed at the coil around his legs, the blade scraping against tough scales. The python hissed, tightening harder. His vision blurred, but he swung again and again, cutting into flesh. Blood streaked the ground. The snake recoiled slightly, loosening enough for him to pull free. Gasping for breath, the ranger scrambled to his feet. His chest heaved, his arms trembling. He looked at the mother, still locked in a desperate battle with the larger python. "Hold on," he whispered, his voice hoarse. He raised the knife, stepping forward again, but then the first snake, the one he had struck earlier, rose behind him, its head towering. Its eyes glowed with fury. The ranger turned, knife in hand, but it lunged with terrifying speed. Time slowed. The hiss, the strike, the rushing air, it all blurred into one moment. The ranger threw himself sideways, the fangs slicing the air beside his head. He rolled, his knife flashing, cutting deep into the snake's jaw. The python screamed, a deep guttural sound, and pulled back, blood dripping from its mouth. It thrashed violently, shaking the ground. The mother fossa, bloodied but unbroken, ripped free from the second python's grip. She rushed to her baby, scooping it closer. She snarled at the snakes, her body trembling but her spirit unbroken. The ranger staggered, sweat and blood covering him. He stood beside the mother, knife raised. He whispered to himself, "We're not done." Not yet. The forest was alive with chaos. Hissing snakes, snarling mother, a crying baby, and a man caught between death and duty. Above them, the birds circled, their cries sharp, as if the forest itself held its breath for the outcome. And deep within that chaos, a new sound stirred in the distance, the sound of rushing water. A river nearby, swollen from recent rain. The ranger's mind raced. An idea sparked. If they could reach it, the snakes might lose their advantage. But to get there, they had to survive a few more minutes, a few more battles. The question burned sharper than ever. Could they make it out alive, or would the forest claim another story of life cut short? The ranger's chest rose and fell like a drum, his breath ragged from the struggle. His hand gripped the knife so tight that his knuckles turned white. Beside him, the mother fossa crouched low, her fur bristling, her tail lashing violently as she shielded her baby. The forest no longer felt like a home. It had turned into an arena, and every tree around them seemed to hold its breath. The two pythons circled slowly, their bodies sliding over the damp leaves with a sickening hiss. Their tongues flickered, testing the air heavy with fear and blood. One was wounded, its jaw dripping dark streaks onto the soil, but the other was fresh, stronger, its muscles rippling with hunger. Together, they were merciless hunters, and now their focus was locked not only on the baby, but on the ranger and the mother who dared to defy them. The ranger swallowed hard. He whispered under his breath, his words almost a prayer, "If I don't think fast, this ends here." His eyes darted around, searching desperately for something, anything that could give him an advantage. His gaze caught the glimmer of water through the trees. The river. Yes, that was his only hope, but reaching it meant moving through the serpents, and right now they were penned in like prey. The baby whimpered, a trembling squeak that cut through the air. That sound seemed to trigger the larger python. With a sudden lunge, it shot forward, mouth wide. The ranger thrust his knife upward, catching the side of its jaw as he sidestepped. The impact sent him tumbling, his body crashing into the ground. The knife sliced deep, but not enough to stop it. The mother seized her moment. She leapt onto the snake's thick body, clawing, biting, her teeth sinking into rough scales. The python twisted violently, trying to dislodge her, but she held on with raw fury. Her snarl echoed through the clearing, louder than the snake's hiss. The second python, the wounded one, turned its gaze toward the ranger, who was scrambling to his feet. With terrifying speed, it lashed its tail across the ground. The blow struck the ranger across his side, knocking the air from his lungs. He staggered, coughing, pain ripping through his ribs. He dropped his knife, the blade clattering against the stones. "No!" he gasped, his hand reaching out. But the snake coiled around him again, faster this time. His chest compressed. He felt his ribs strain, his breath shallow. Darkness edged his vision. He clawed at the coil, every muscle in his body screaming. The baby fossa cried out again, its tiny voice raw with panic. That cry sparked something inside the ranger. His vision cleared. His hand groped blindly at his belt and found the metal hook he always carried. With the last ounce of strength, he jammed it into the snake's body and pulled hard. The python screeched, thrashing violently. The coil loosened. He sucked in air, gasping, and pulled himself free, his chest burning as if fire had filled his lungs. "Not today," he hissed, staggering back to his feet. His voice cracked, but his spirit held. The mother Fossa still clung to the larger python, her claws raking its eyes, her teeth digging deeper. The python rolled, slamming her against a tree trunk with a sickening thud. She yelped, the sound tearing at the ranger's heart. Still, she did not let go. Her love for her baby was stronger than the pain that racked her body. The ranger lunged forward, grabbing his knife again. He struck at the snake's coils, each blow carving bloody streaks into its scales. The python hissed in agony, tightening once before flinging its body backward. The ranger was thrown off balance, landing hard, dirt and blood sticking to his skin. The forest seemed to pulse with chaos, snakes hissing, ranger gasping, mother snarling, baby crying. But beneath that chaos was another sound, steady, growing louder, the river's roar. It was closer than he thought. The ranger's mind raced. If they could force the snakes toward the river, the current might take them. That was their only chance. Move. Toward the river, he muttered to himself, his eyes locked on the mother. He wasn't sure why he spoke aloud, but perhaps he needed to hear the plan to believe it. The larger python slammed its tail down, missing by inches but shaking the ground. The ranger staggered back, every step pulling him closer to the sound of rushing water. He waved his knife, shouting, "Come on! You want me? Then follow me!" His voice echoed, bold and reckless. The snakes turned their heads, their eyes locking onto him. Their bodies shifted, following his retreat. The mother Fossa hesitated, torn between staying with her baby and following the ranger's lead. But she saw the truth in his movements. This was the only way. She gripped her baby by the scruff and darted after him, staying close but wary. Step by step, the ranger moved backward, his eyes never leaving the predators. His chest heaved, sweat stung his eyes, but he kept shouting, waving his arms, making himself the target. His heart pounded with fear, but he knew he had to keep them angry, keep them following. The trees began to thin. The roar of the river grew deafening. The ground beneath them sloped, mud slick from last night's storm. The ranger's boot slipped, but he steadied himself. Just a few more steps. Suddenly, the smaller, wounded python struck again, its head lunging toward his legs. The ranger jumped back, his knife flashing down, slicing across its face. The snake screamed, its head jerking sideways, but the attack pushed him too far. His foot slipped on the wet slope and he fell backward, straight into the riverbank. The water roared below, furious and fast, carrying branches and debris from the storm. He barely caught the edge of a root, his body dangling over the rushing current. His knife nearly slipped from his hand. He gritted his teeth, pulling himself up with every ounce of strength left. His arms burned. The mother Fossa appeared beside him, her baby clutched in her mouth. She dropped the little one onto safe ground and turned back toward the snakes. She snarled, her body low, her fur spiked, daring them to step closer. The larger python slithered toward the edge, its body sliding closer, its head rising above the ranger. Its fangs gleamed, dripping with saliva. The ranger hauled himself up, mud covering his arms, his knife trembling in his grip. He whispered hoarsely, "This ends at the river." The python lunged. With a desperate cry, the ranger sidestepped, slashing his knife across its belly. The snake's momentum carried it too far. Its massive body slipped on the mud, sliding straight into the river below. The current roared, seizing it instantly, dragging it downstream. Its body thrashed, coils twisting, but the water was merciless. The ranger collapsed to his knees, gasping, his chest heaving. But his relief was short, because the second python was still there. It coiled tighter, its tongue flickering as it approached. The mother snarled, her body trembling, blood staining her fur, but she stood ready. The baby squeaked, hiding behind her. The ranger forced himself to his feet, his body screaming in protest. He raised the knife again, his eyes narrowing. His breath came sharp and fast. He muttered under his breath, "One down!" One more to go, but before he could step forward, the ground shook again, not from the snake this time, but from something else. A deep rumble rolled through the forest, the sound of hooves. The ranger's eyes widened. He turned his head. From the trees emerged a herd of wild boars, startled by the chaos, charging blindly through the undergrowth. Their tusks gleamed, their bodies crashed against the trees, sending branches flying. The python paused, its head turning. Even predators understood when the forest itself brought new chaos. The ranger's chest tightened. A new danger, a new twist. The question was no longer just survival against snakes, but survival against the stampede rushing straight toward them. The ground shook harder as the herd of wild boars thundered through the trees. Their hooves pounded against the earth like rolling drums of war, and branches snapped under their furious charge. The ranger's heart froze. The python, the Fossa family himself, all were caught in the deadly path of chaos that had nothing to do with them. The massive python lifted its head, hissing loudly, its body coiling tighter as if bracing for the storm. The mother Fossa hissed back, her tail lashing as she pressed her baby into a hollow between roots. The ranger stood frozen for half a breath, then shouted, "Move! Get to the side, now!" His voice cracked, but the urgency was undeniable. He grabbed a low branch, pulling himself and the mother toward the edge of the clearing. The baby clung to its mother's fur, its tiny claws digging deep, eyes wide with terror. The herd burst through, tusks gleaming, dirt flying, their sheer force shaking the earth. At the very last moment, the ranger leapt aside with the Fossa family. The python was not so lucky. The first boar struck it hard, tusks cutting through its scales. The snake screamed, twisting violently, but more hooves trampled it down. Its massive body writhed, then disappeared under the storm of pounding legs. The forest filled with the sound of bones cracking and furious squeals. When the herd finally passed, dust hung in the air, and silence returned like a curtain falling after chaos. The ranger coughed, his chest aching, his body trembling. He looked at the ground where the python had been. What remained was a broken, lifeless body, its coils scattered. Its power finally ended not by blade or fang, but by the wild rhythm of the forest itself. The mother Fossa stepped out slowly, her baby pressed against her chest. She turned her head toward the ranger, her eyes meeting his for a brief silent moment. There was no gratitude in the human sense, but there was recognition. Two worlds, wild and human, had fought side by side, and both had survived. The ranger dropped his knife, breathing heavily. He whispered to himself, "Nature has its own justice. Today it chose mercy for the small." His voice cracked with exhaustion, but there was peace in his tone. He watched the mother nudge her baby forward, the little one wobbling on unsteady legs but alive, its innocent eyes shining. They disappeared slowly into the forest shadows, their figures blending with the roots and leaves, leaving the ranger alone by the riverbank. For a long while, he just stood there, listening to the roar of the river and the fading sounds of the forest. He thought about the chaos he had just witnessed. The python's hunger, the mother's courage, the baby's innocence, the herd's unstoppable force. All of it had been one lesson written in the language of survival. Finally, he whispered, "Life is fragile, but courage is stronger. In the wild or in our own lives, we survive not because we are the biggest, but because we fight for what matters most." He turned back toward the path, his boots heavy in the mud, his body scarred and bruised, but his spirit sharpened. Behind him, the forest began to breathe again. The birds sang, the leaves rustled, and life continued, as if reminding him that every ending is also a beginning. Memorable lesson, closing note: in the wild, danger comes without warning, and life can be taken in a heartbeat. Yet even in the darkest moments, courage and love can turn the tide. The mother Fossa fought for her child. The ranger risked everything for creatures not his own, and nature itself stepped in with its own justice. The lesson is simple but powerful. Survival is not guaranteed by strength alone. It is protected by courage, unity, and the will to fight for life.